Monday, June 12, and I'm not going to use the headset because that sounded awful. So you're just going to have to deal with the hollow sound of my voice and the deep reverberations of the powerful four-cylinder engine in my sedan. The Attorneys General of Maryland and the District of Columbia say they will file suit against Donald Trump for violating the anti-corruption clauses of the Constitution. They say he has done so by retaining ownership of his international companies while in office. I'm paraphrasing here, but they say that the Constitution demands that the president disentangle himself from private finance in order to execute his office. Which, I mean, sounds good to a reasonable person, right? Well, the whole thing hinges on the emoluments clauses. The founders of our country decided that one of the best ways to prevent corruption in high office was to simply deem it illegal that any person holding office cannot accept gifts or emoluments from foreign entities. Now, nor can they accept knighthood or princehood or any silliness like that. But this whole thing revolves around the word emoluments. Emoluments can be defined as any salary or profit. And that's what the Attorneys General will argue. But I believe the defense will also argue for another, more vague definition of emoluments. They'll argue that owning corporations in another part of the world does not qualify as a gift or princehood or whatever. I believe they will argue that what he's doing does not constitute or does not fall within the realm of that clause. This thing also hinges around the fact that the Attorneys General of Maryland and D.C. first have to get a judge to accept the case. And then, in the discovery period of that case, they will argue that they need Trump's tax returns in order to proceed with their case. And you know, Trump, his lawyers, and perhaps the Justice Department will fight that all the way to the Supreme Court. So it's a long battle. And it's also not the first suit revolving around the same clause. There's one that's still stuck in the system that was filed in January by, I believe it was by a not-for-profit group. I'll have to look that up. I didn't make note of it. My, the storm really continues around Donald Trump. You know, when he got into office, I was certain that because of his lack of political experience, he would surround himself with the most intelligent, most useful people he could. And they would help keep him out of trouble. But that doesn't seem to be the case. Nobody convinced him that divestiture was a good idea. How that happened, I don't know. I mean, he sort of did surround himself with really smart people. But they seem unable to defy him or tell him what's good for him in defiance of what he wants. And I think maybe it's going to get him into a lot of trouble. Second story of the day. Puerto Rico has voted for statehood to become the 51st state of the United States. And that's not a strange thing. They've had that vote several times. But what's odd about this vote is Puerto Rico is a place where voter turnout, especially on a large referendum like this, usually hovers around 80%. But this time around, only 23% of the population turned out to vote. What happened was there are opposition parties who either prefer to remain a territory of the United States or would like their independence entirely from the United States. And it seems that both groups boycotted the vote. They boycotted through absentia, I guess. They boycotted because they thought it was rigged toward statehood. Now, if you don't vote, you won't know. Anyway, Governor Ricardo Rosella intends to take the mandate to Congress to press for Puerto Rico's admittance or admission, I don't know which is correct, into the United States, into the Union as the 51st state. Here's the big problem with the whole thing. It's rarely a good idea to allow a minority to speak for the majority. And with Puerto Rico in its current state, they recently filed some form of bankruptcy in the face of $74 billion of unpaid debts, nearly $50 billion in pension obligations they can't pay. They've closed more than 150 public schools. That place is rigged to explode. It is one giant tinderbox waiting for a spark. And Governor Rosella can argue all he likes that Puerto Rico needs the United States more than ever. And he does have a point. Their financial situation is dire straits. But that defies all the most patriotic Puerto Ricans and all those who protested in absentia. And what's likely to happen when you defy such a huge majority? What's it going to be like when the 77% finally decide to participate and fight the 23%? Might get real ugly. Fucking hate the roads around here.